Tape recorder's running, right? Tape recorder's running.
Hey, Steve Smith.
Hello, Brett Starr. Or do I have to say, hey, Brett Starr, because of the title of the podcast?
Well, no, because I don't have my neon sign up yet. I'm, in the middle of switching studios, and I'm kind of building it out as I have time. And so you don't have to say, you've never had to say, hey, Brett Starr.
Okay, so that's not like, here's Johnny.
No, I don't like coach people to say like, hey, no. Well, that's what I'm going as for Halloween, by the way.
What, Johnny Carson?
No, that's funny though. No, I'm going as the dad in The Shining. Jack.
Wow.
What's Jack's last name? I can't remember.
Nicholson.
Well, not yeah, but his character's also named Jack. I can't
Jack
remember.
Tripper.
No, and
sorry, that was Three's Company.
Bonnie's going as the little boy Danny, and I've spent like the last 6 nights trying to build her that little tricycle that he rides down the hall. But in an adult, she's 11, but she's like human, adult size. She's huge. So I've been trying to build like an adult size tricycle for her. Anyway,
I think your best Halloween costume was when you went as Wreck-It Ralph, though.
Oh, that was
really inspired.
It really fit. I'm Brett Starr. I'm the CEO of the Starr Conspiracy. I'm joined today by Steve Smith, who is a partner at the Starr Conspiracy and wears many hats, but the most significant for the Starr Conspiracy is that he is our chief marketing officer, which is a tough position for an agency that sells marketing stuff.
Yeah.
And
don't I know it?
Yeah. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about our recent rebrand and go through a little bit of, why we did it and what it means. And we're talking to the person who has been working on it for how long have you been working on this, Steve?
Oh, gosh, over a year.
Yeah. So, I'm just going to start by asking a few questions. I think what most people want to talk about, most of the conversations that I'm having are around the fact that we refer to ourselves as an experience agency. Mm-hmm. And that's a great conversation starter. But not everyone, meaning most people don't really know what that means. And so it's a great place to, kind of start and have that conversation. But before we get there, why did we rebrand? Why did you decide it was time for the Starr Conspiracy to rebrand?
I think that for the past 15 or so years that it's very clear that when we get into conversations with people, they're looking to us to be on the cutting edge and to bring them what's next. And so I think that so part of the motivation is where is not just kind of the work tech industry going, but what's the, what does, marketing mean in, today's environment for work tech companies. And I think that to quote my favorite Brett Starr saying, great marketing should make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so I think that, you go back to 2019 when we really kind of broke out of, this isn't just HR tech, it's work tech. That at that moment was a bit uncomfortable, but it was very clear as we got into 2020 that we were just kind of like just the right bit ahead of the market. And then as we saw other people who had been kind of HR tech diehards kind of jump onto the work tech terminology, it's clear now that we kind of hit that just right. And as we have, in conversations I was having with you and everybody else internally over the last year, it was very clear that there was something that was changing in kind of the sales and marketing equation. And what that was really B2B marketing has a bad rap and has had a bad rap. Yeah. It's just like we're the poor stepson to B2C marketing. It's just like, we don't have Super Bowl commercials yet. Actually, I think there were a few WorkTech Super Bowl commercials this past year. So to my point, but
I thought you were talking about us. The Star Conspiracy doesn't have a Super Bowl commercial yet.
Well, not yet. But once Dan approves that PO for $20 million, then we're in good shape. No, but what's really clear is that marketing in enterprise software and WorkTech software specifically is behind the times from a customer experience perspective. I think that the world definitely has, B2C marketers have embraced customer experience almost, a decade now. They've definitely gotten good at it in the past 5 or 6 years. B2B and WorkTech, definitely not. And the big difference that we've really kind of seen is that it's all about, are you treating your sales and marketing experience as part of the customer experience? And I think that a lot of the practitioners and worked in marketing, sales and marketing for WorkTech were definitely not. They were thinking of themselves as apart from what goes on after the signature and what happens when they flip them over to a customer success team. And what was really clear to us is that it needs to be a holistic experience. It's everything from that first, brand touch in the marketing process all the way through, your conversion to a renewal in year 3. All that needs to be aligned, and it's just not. And now it's just like, there's also a lot of supplementary research from the likes of Gartner and Forrester and Salesforce and Qualtrics and a lot of other Medallia that's coming out that really validates that point, which is especially salient for B2B marketers. So,
well, and ironically, some, like you mentioned Salesforce as an example, I make a pretty strong argument that it's companies like Salesforce who kind of ruined B2B marketing. And we can talk a little bit about that. But before we, kind of talk about the difference between, customer experience and, or a customer experience perspective on, brand and marketing and sales and product and customer success. I think it's important for me as I work through this process of, kind of thinking through the rebrand with you and with the team that was working on it. I think most people know the Star Conspiracy as a B2B marketing agency. And, I agree, B2B marketing I think it's degraded in quality and effectiveness over time, but not because people are doing a bad job. It's just because marketing has become more siloed over time. And all this technological determinism has, seeped in. I know no one wants to talk about technological determinism, but, it's basically when, you bend your strategy to meet how the technology works rather than using the technology to support what your strategy is. And MarTech and sales tech over time has really driven us into this myopic numbers-based view, pipeline-based, linear-based view of, things like the customer journey and stuff like that. And the reality is, customer experience is a merry-go-round. It's not a funnel. It's not a slide. It's not a linear. There's no such thing as a linear journey. People get on the merry-go-round in different places and they get off in different places. A story that I often tell is, it happens all the time, is, an employee can, get a job in HR at a new company and suddenly they're using 15 WorkTech products. And so they enter, the customer experience in the product subdomain, never having, kind of had the brand experience or the marketing experience. And then maybe that person, gets promoted a couple of times and goes to a new company and is put in charge of, putting together the WorkTech stack or find the new performance management solution or whatever. They had a product experience in their last job. And if they want to bring that company into their, that vendor into their new company, then now they're entering into the marketing experience and the sales experience. And if those two things are not aligned, that can create a moment of cognitive dissonance that really negatively impacts the overall customer experience and the probability that they'll become a customer for that vendor. But, even as, people have known us as a B2B marketing agency, we haven't really been we've been way more than that for a long time. And so I feel like the rebrand, is actually catching up with what we are. It's always been hard to describe what we are to folks, which is a great problem to have. But talk a little bit about like, the types of people that we have here and the stuff that we do, because probably only 50% of the work that we do is specifically, what people would consider pure B2B marketing or branding or whatever. Just talk about, kind of like the weird mashup that we are.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, over the years, the joke has been, when, we'd be in the room, with a CEO and talking for an hour and, have him or her say, "Oh, you're an advertising agency or a marketing consulting firm disguised as an advertising agency." But sometimes we get like the other version. It's just like, that's sort of what, we really have been. I mean, it's just like we have this deep domain expertise, but then, we do all this stuff as well. And so, we have like, brilliant, like, account directors and, people who, write short form copy and design, really, killer brands. But then, we have people like, a Jonathan Goodman, who's been in this space forever and has, worked with, hundreds of companies and work tech on the inside, or a guy like Aaron Delgatti, who is a PhD instructor at the University of North Carolina and has, wrote his PhD thesis on employee experience. And so, we definitely have an odd cast of characters that have, different bits of expertise that really add up to something that is really very different than most other agencies out there.
Yeah. And so we have, analysts, and we have consultants, and we have, marketing professionals and great creatives and great, copywriters and, all that stuff. But the reality is, as our clients know, for years when we've been working with them, our work very rarely stays in the marketing silo.
Right.
One of the things that we work on the most are, brand messages, for instance. And we really pioneered, a model for creating brand messages, specifically in the work tech industry that, we've been building on and improving for years and years. But time and time again, those message projects are, so well researched. They're so well analyzed. We bring in, so many insights and perspectives from, our knowledge of the landscape of vendors in the space. And so we don't just, you don't have to tell us who your competitors are. We know who they are. And we probably got 15 pages of information about them, from, what their performance is as a company, to what the, specific features are, components of their products, to, how good those features are compared to the competitive set. And so we bring a lot of, things that would not usually be brought to the table in something like a brand message project that end up setting the course for strategy inside that organization. And so a lot of our work has, for years, has always had a deep impact. If we're working in brand or if we're working in marketing, has always had a deep impact in sales. It's had a deep impact in the product experience in terms of, driving future direction of development. And also in customer success, which is, the toughest job, I think, in, technology companies. And so I think that, for me, the rebrand was, kind of catching up with the way that we've approached marketing specifically for a long time, which is that marketing cannot exist in a silo. And when it does, it can have a lot of marketing can actually be performing well when viewed, with a silo perspective or a myopic perspective, but can drive all these unintended consequences in other areas of the customer experience if it's not seen as, an integrated part of the customer experience.
Well, and I think that, what's become, pretty clear is that the obsession with growth and really, I think the prevalent, more tactical view of what marketing is supposed to do. You need to drive MQL, so then we can drive SQL. So then and it's just basically kind of fitting into that traditional kind of linear spreadsheet view of input X here and get Y in terms of output. And that's going to lead to, the 50 or 100% year over year growth we need to keep our investors happy. And it's just like, that's not, I think that's leading marketers to make bad choices in terms of, great, let's keep the funnel filled on the front end. We don't care what kind of garbage is converting over onto the customer side. That's for our CS people to solve. And then when, and I think, we were talking about this last week, when companies are running into problems with, customers and renewals, a lot of times those problems can be traced back to the fact that sales and marketing has been pumping garbage in and not really aligning customers who are great fits for, long-term growth.
Yeah. So our rebrand is kind of a full embrace of the holistic, kind of nature of the customer experience, and how all of these things work together to create good business outcomes. Right. And so here's something that I see all the time. When I started to recognize it, it's like when you learn a new word for the first time and then suddenly you hear it 18 times after, you just keep seeing it over and over and over again. I've talked to several, CEOs who say, man, marketing's doing great. Our brand is awesome. We're driving tons of, marketing qualified leads. We're converting tons of sales qualified leads. Our product is, great, but I've got two issues, and these are the same two issues that I hear, all the time. Our salespeople aren't converting deals the way they used to. So we've got a sales problem that we need to fix. And our customer success team is, turning over like every 3 months because they are constantly fighting fires with, dissatisfied customers. And whenever I hear that, brand is performing well, marketing is performing well, sales has everything that they need to succeed, but for some reason, the conversion rates are just going down like crazy. The product's on track and doing great, but customer success is just, we can't even keep anybody in those positions because it's such a high burnout job, and they're just, having conversations with angry customers all the time. Yeah. And usually, their strategy is to focus on how to fix sales or how to fix customer success. But the reality is, when almost every time, we've peeled that onion, it's not a problem with customer success and it's not a problem with sales. They're good teams. They have talent. They know how to sell stuff. They have, lots of success in other areas. It's that there are breaks in continuity between brand, marketing, sales, product, and customer success that manifest in problems that look like they're, customer success problems and look like they're sales problems. But viewed more holistically, they're actually, just a lack of alignment. And so, just in a nutshell, if you've got a product that, does performance management and, employee listening and, recognition, as an example, and, you position that product, and let's say that, let's say the recognition component is just awful, right? It's like legacy. The company's betting on performance management and betting on, employee listening and kind of moving away from recognition. And so, they go into the brand subdomain of customer experience, and they position themselves as an employee experience organization. Marketing has a mandate to drive marketing qualified leads. So they're running all these inbound campaigns that are trying to pull people with employee recognition keywords and performance keywords and, employee surveys and engagement keywords, and also employee experience keywords. And so you get a wide range of people who are coming into, the pipeline, if you will, who are looking for different things. And salespeople are kind of caught in the middle between product and marketing. So if marketing, brings in a bunch of employee recognition, prospects, and they're trying to demo the product or, talk about employee recognition, it falls short of their expectations, then they're not going to close those deals, right?
Right.
Or because they have to hit their numbers, they're going to do whatever it takes to close those deals.
Yeah.
And then that gets thrown over the fence to customer success. And, in those environments, you have the customer success team who's spending all of their time with the dissatisfied customers. Mm-hmm. And the dissatisfied customers always follow a pattern. And if you trace it all the way back through the customer experience, the pattern is, those are the folks who came in because they cared most about the shittiest part of your product that you're promoting in marketing. And marketing's doing a lights out job of driving leads, but their expectations about the product versus the reality are way off. And so customer success is constantly, dealing with their dissatisfaction around that. Meanwhile, the people who are super happy with performance or super happy with, engagement measurement are not getting attention from customer success because they're jumping from one hot case to the next. And so that's just an example of like marketing can be doing a great job if their job is to drive leads. But if it's not aligned with, all the way through, the multiple subdomains of customer experience, they can actually harm the business by doing a great job.
Right.
And, that happens time and time again. And if you go to a B2B marketing agency, they're just going to help you drive more shitty leads.
Right.
If they don't have, kind of a deeper insight around, where these breaks in continuity are happening. And so I think that's what the rebrand, represents for me. It's a full embrace of kind of the holistic perspective that we've had, for over a decade, but is really, fitting nicely into the evolution of customer experience within B2B technology companies.
Yeah, and the conversations that I'm having with CEOs right now and with marketing leaders are validating that point that, this isn't something that we just kind of like thought up in a vacuum. It's just like people are experiencing this right now and it's becoming a more significant pain point.
Yeah. Well, customer experience, like everyone talks about customer experience. Very few people actually, understand it, and it's not their fault.
Right.
And even fewer people, even if they understand it, know how to do anything about it.
Right.
And so, we believe that there's, three primary reasons that, people are not taking a more holistic view of customer experience and implementing that in their organization, especially relevant to, brand and marketing. It's that, first of all, a definition of just a simple definition of what customer experience is elusive. It's like ask 10 people to define customer experience. And you'll get some very, complex, abstract, definitions of customer experience. And honestly, I think most people, when they're talking about customer experience, they're really talking about mostly the relationship between product and customer success. So they think about customer experience as the experience that a customer is actually having when they become a customer. And that's the wrong view of customer experience, because the actual experience that they have with the product and with customer success is driven by the expectations that were set by the brand and the expectations that were set in marketing and the expectations that were set in sales. And if there's a big gap between those expectations and the reality of, what they experience with product and customer success, and that's a huge problem. So this definition of customer success as being, predominantly managing the relationship with existing customers, that's a huge problem that can't be fixed by just making customer success better,
Right.
So we have a very simple definition for customer experience, which is simply the perception of, the quality of time spent with your company. It's just a perception of the time spent with your company. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it valuable? Was it not valuable? But it's all based on people's subjective, experience that's created by stringing together, all of these interactions that they have with your organization on the merry-go-round of customer experience. So this lack of, a simple definition that customer experience is, simply the perception of, the time spent with your company is a real limiting factor, because those definitions can get pretty complex pretty quickly.
Yeah, but I mean, and we've talked about this for years. The time they spend with your company is set at the beginning of the marketing process. What's the experience that they have with your brand? And then when they opt in and actually are having those first conversations, those first meetings with, the people who work for your brand, is that consistent with that first message? If you've got, a crazy rock and roll brand, and then everyone shows up at the first meeting and they're all, buzz cut, button down, and completely straight laced, it's just sort of like, hey, there's something incongruent here.
Yeah.
And that's not just the sales and marketing process. It goes all the way down the line.
Well, it reminds me, so problem number one, not a clear definition of customer experience. We have that. But to the point that you're describing, I remember this, workshop that I did like probably 7 or 8 years ago, maybe longer. I don't know. Time runs together now. But it was basically a really big, like one of the biggest employee recognition companies. And it is basically, an older, more kind of traditional employee recognition company. And a very conservative organization, no judgment there, but has a very conservative culture. And they called us in to speak to them about how to change their brand and change their marketing so that they could appeal to millennials. They were having a hard time in their minds appealing to millennials. And, so I showed up in, this banquet room, and I'm talking to, like 100 of their, folks and across, sales and marketing and stuff like that. And asking them questions about why they thought it was so important to appeal to millennials. And what I found in the course of the conversation is that they hate millennials, or I should say, they hate the characterization of millennials, right? What they perceived as the attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs of millennials ran counter to what they actually believed as an organization that was trying to, promote a very, kind of traditional view of the relationship between companies and employees, and how they want that to work. And so if we had actually done that, if we had actually like jazzed up their brand and made, like all of the, marketing and brand changes that, in their minds would make them more appealing to a different, generation of buyers that they're not, that they weren't having success with at the time, it actually would have resulted in exactly what you're describing. They would have seen this like really, flashy, innovative website, and, people wearing t-shirts and, riding scooters around the office. And the first time they showed up for a sales meeting, they'd be meeting with a 55-year-old, person in a suit and tie. And that's one of those breaks in continuity where the expectation that was set by brand and marketing runs into a sales experience that's radically different. And that's just enough to create the cognitive dissonance to result in, losing an opportunity. And
that's nothing new. This has always been true. It's becoming, I think, more mission critical now, because there is, we've seen in our industry with all of this investment coming in the industry, there have been these just honestly some, I think, unrealistic expectations around growth that companies have been struggling to meet. And I think that one of the compromises that was made to hit that growth is that say anything, do anything to get that deal closed. And, my mind goes back to a conversation that I had with Mike Carden, formerly of Sonar 6, now of Joyous. This
Love Mike.
Yeah, he's a great guy and great marketer. But like talking to him like 10 years ago, he was talking about when we were working together, and I asked him, I was like, what did we do differently? And he's like, the thing that you did right was you gave us permission to be ourselves. And I think that always stuck with me, because it's just like, that's all I'm trying to do with whatever client that I'm working with, is giving them permission to be themselves. A lot of times people don't feel like they can because that isn't what someone wants to buy. But
right.
the way you are, the way your culture is, the way your people are, that is, that's the kind of buyer you're looking for. And so,
yeah. And you just have to let your freak flag fly, whatever it is. Right. Because that's what's getting built into the product. It's that vision, that's getting built into the product, and, driving the employee experience in those organizations. You just don't want to, try to, constantly think about what buyers want, which sounds very counterintuitive for customer experience. Mm-hmm. But if you're constantly trying to, map strategies and brand and marketing and sales and product and customer success to what you think the most recent customer wants that you talk to, you're really losing yourself, and you're losing, kind of that, unique, set of attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs that make you different than the other companies who offer similar solutions. And you really have to embrace that and make sure that it's, kind of invested in every subdomain of customer experience. So, to kind of move on to the second reason why customer experience is, poorly understood and poorly implemented. First being the lack of a clear definition. The second is the lack of a holistic framework, just a simple, framework, to help people understand what customer experience looks like and how to do something about it inside an organization. And so we have a very simple framework for customer experience. We consider customer experience one of three primary experience domains: employee experience, customer experience, and shareholder experience, right? And all three of those, have to be balanced in order for, a business to be successful. But we're talking about customer experience right now. And customer experience has 5 subdomains. And those are brand and marketing and sales and product and customer success. That's it, right? And a lot of people, when we start talking about that, there's initially a little bit of confusion between, well, what's a brand experience versus what's, a marketing experience? Just trying to kind of fit all the pieces together. And, brand experience is, kind of really, the experience that people have with your organization, with the people in your organization, with the places that they visit in your organization, whether it's, the office or, a trade show exhibit or whatever, or, the advertising that you do. It's the experience that they have with your company before they're actively engaged in, the marketing community. And so brand experience activities are more like brand advertising, brand with a capital B, the visual brand system, the brand message, all that stuff. Marketing experience is really call to action oriented. And so that's the marketing experience is really when you get into that kind of connect, engage, and convert motion that's meant to really drive people to, kind of get more engaged with a conversation about what it might be like to work together in the future. Again, when I draw those out, I don't draw them as a linear process or as a funnel or anything like that. It's a merry-go-round because people can get on in different places. We have this notion with these really in my opinion, these really insidious models that are all linear in notion. They all imagine that everyone starts by hearing about your company, and that's the brand experience. And then they, get, a marketing email with a thought leadership article. And, then they become an MQL, and then they become an SQL, and then they're having a sales conversation, and then they're using the product, and then they're dealing with customer success, right? And the reality is that's not the way the world works. The world is random and chaotic. And, just in the example I used earlier, people can start with a product experience. They can start with a customer success experience. They can start anywhere, and they can get off anywhere and then restart somewhere else. And I think the most important thing is to understand that whatever experience someone has with you, whatever moment they share with your organization, whether it's in brand, marketing, sales, product, or customer success, that there has to be a continuity to the quality of that experience, so that people can come to trust and revere your brand. And so it's not, on one level, it's not rocket science. But I think, would you agree that it's fine if you don't, but would you agree that most organizations don't really have that kind of holistic perspective that, these things are connected and that they need to be aligned?
Oh, no, I don't think most organizations do at all. I think that there's a lot of inconsistency, and there's no awareness that there needs to be any alignment at all. I think that there's growing awareness that's what, there's enough research out there that shows that buyers are, they can sense that not everybody that they're talking to is on the same page.
Yeah.
They know they're getting different messages in the sales and marketing process versus what's happening at the product level, and they're expressing dissatisfaction with it. And so it's just like, it's very clear. And in conversations that we're having, I can see the light bulb going on in real time, which is really a fascinating thing to watch, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah. And, we talk a lot about breaks in continuity and customer experience being, kind of the biggest problem, for tech companies. And the question that often, comes up is, well, where does that continuity come from? Like, what does that even mean? In reality, as marketers, we're really trained to focus on the brand and the brand message as the source of truth for what the company, stands for. And that's not really true. In reality, there has to be a higher order vision, a customer experience vision. And we actually do a lot of work to create customer experience vision platforms, customer experience vision statements, which is a very, it's almost like a cheap, kind of characterization of how important, customer experience vision is. Yes, it needs to be boiled down to a couple of sentences that everyone can get behind. But the work that goes into, actually figuring out what your customer experience vision is, the quality of experience that you want to create for customers in brand, marketing, sales, product, and customer success, goes well beyond, a vision statement that is presented at the annual meeting and then quickly forgotten. It has to be deeply embedded in all pillars of the customer experience. So, if the first thing is a simple definition, the second thing is a holistic framework, that holistic framework is really just about understanding what the components of customer experience are in the merry-go-round and understanding that they all have to be united by a very clearly articulated customer experience vision, which should, clearly state the type of experience that you want to create for folks. I can't think of very many organizations that we meet who have that level of, plumbing around customer experience in terms of, well, what is your customer experience vision? Most people, couldn't really do a great job of describing what that is.
Right.
And then that third part is just like, okay, well, hey, we've got we know what customer experience is. Yeah, it's super important. We have a holistic framework, totally get it. But what do you do about it? And I think that, the other big challenge, and one of the reasons why I think it's so important for us to, finally, claim and embrace this experience agency position, is that people get overwhelmed by the notion of, having to manage every interaction that someone has with your company. And so it's difficult for people to plan a customer experience, initiative. But it becomes almost counterproductive when they start to look at every single, moment or interaction in the customer experience and saying they all have to be great. And that's not really true. And, all of our research, we've done a lot of research on this, both in terms of, the work that we've put into designing our models, but also in the work that we've done in implementing, customer experience solutions for clients. And we know that it really comes down to a simple concept of defining moments. And once your mind shifts from, kind of the idea that we have to control every interaction in every moment versus focusing on the defining moments within each of those subdomains of customer experience, and the path to creating a customer experience becomes much more clear. So how would you describe a defining moment? What does a defining moment mean to you?
Yeah, it's a moment where what your customer expects when you break the script, essentially.
Yeah.
It's just like when you can, provide a moment of surprise and really kind of reframe how they're looking at things. I think that's where you get into, and this is another thing that we talked about over the years. Buyers make decisions based on emotion. They backfill with logic. And I can't tell you how many times over the years when I was, working with a client, they're like, you know what, we just signed this deal, and our customer said, I downloaded this white paper and I read it, and it really changed the way that I looked at the problem, or something along those lines, where it's just like there was a reframe. There was something where a moment where the script was broken. And so it's just like, if you can figure out what are those moments where you can break the script, at that point, that's when buyers are switching from a rational decision to an emotional one. Yeah. And you've reached a tipping point in the entire experience. And then if you can reaffirm those defining moments based on what was that experience that they had throughout that customer journey, it's just like, that's what continuity looks like.
Yeah. So let's put some, science around the concept of defining moments. One of my favorite stories that, is told frequently in customer experience circles is this kind of, I'd call it a famous research study, but it's really only famous for people who, take deep dives into customer experience. But there was this great research study where, an organization basically paid people to go to Disney World. And they said, we're going to pay for your trip to Disney World. And all you have to do is once an hour, you need to submit a net promoter score for the quality of your experience at that moment. And then, give us a little bit of detail about it. So, all these folks were, kind of sending in their scores every hour, and like, hey, 8 a.m., the park's opening. We're here. The gates are swinging open. We see Mickey. It's a 10. It's fantastic. And then maybe 2 hours later, they're paying $100 for a hamburger, and they're like, man, food is so expensive here. This place is awful. I give it a 5. And then, 3 hours later, they just rode Space Mountain, and it's an 8. And then they see the fireworks show, and it's a 10. And so, in reality, going to Disney World, really, kind of easy metaphor to understand. Going to Disney World is filled with highs and lows. You get hot, you get thirsty, you pay too much for a bottle of water. Your kids, melt down. But then there's all these amazing moments. And so, it's just kind of, it gets graphed in terms of, highs and lows if you just kind of look at, all these moments at any given time. And so 3 months later, the research team followed up with all the people who were part of this experiment, and they wanted an overall net promoter score reflecting back on the experience they had at Disney World. And everyone expected that it would be an average of, all the scores that they had submitted. And instead, what they found was that their overall net promoter score was based on defining moments. And, for us, those defining moments, and the defining moments as characterized in the study are, look, there's transition moments like beginnings and endings. And then there's like all-time highs and all-time lows. And it's really the beginnings and the endings and the all-time highs or the all-time lows that define the overall quality of the experience. And that's what it comes down to. So people who, were reporting 10s because of the fireworks show and, the gates opening at 8 and all that stuff, they were, even when, they reported a 3 because their kid was melting down, because the hot dog wasn't their brand of hot dog or whatever, they still look back on it and think of it overall as, an experience that was, defined by literally the defining moments, the thing that sets the tone for the entire experience. And so when you think about that from, how you action, creating defining moments in the different subdomains of customer experience, it's really about doing the research to understand where are these moments happening right now? Because whether you know it or not, your company has defining moments in brand, it has them in marketing, and they could be all-time highs, they could be all-time lows. You definitely have beginnings and ends, transition moments where people are moving into the sales, conversation, et cetera, et cetera. But really understanding, where those defining moments exist right now, which are a little bit different for every organization, and determining what the quality of those moments are. And then to your point, once you understand what the defining moments are, how do you build on that moment to make it an all-time high? And the way you do it is by breaking the script. And so if someone's expectation is, we talk about scripts all the time. I always use this example for restaurant. There's all these scripts running in the background all the time. You go to a restaurant, you go up to the host stand, they take you to a table. Somebody comes and brings you a glass of water. Someone brings you menus. Someone comes by and takes an order for your appetizers. They come back and just kind of, it goes on and on. And unless something happens that breaks the script, it almost as if you're not recognizing any of this stuff happening because it's just going according to plan. But if somebody comes and, accidentally dumps a pitcher of cold water on you, that's a defining moment. It's an all-time low for, a lot of people. And so their whole experience, the food could have been great. They could have had no problems at any part of the experience, but the all-time low is what they're always going to remember. Or if it's your birthday and they bring you out a big cake with sparklers, that can be, a defining moment in terms of it being an all-time high. But the question becomes, in these scripts where people expect, like take a first sales meeting, for instance, a first sales meeting, there's a script that's running in the background. People expect that there's going to be some, requirements gathering. There's going to be some conversations going back and forth. I don't think everyone looks forward to like a first, sales meeting, right?
What?
So
of course they do.
I know, right? So if you know what the script is, then how do you break the script to create the best defining moment that you can, for that, all the other stuff. It's not like you don't worry about it, but you don't have to make every moment great. You just have to know what the defining moments are, and you have to invest them with a sense of something different and something that causes people to pay attention and that colors their entire perspective of the overall customer experience. So that's a lot. But I think if I wanted to close with anything, I would say that the Star Conspiracy cares so much about, work tech companies and tech companies and the people in those companies, because we've worked with many of the same people for years and years and years. And we believe that the work that work tech companies are doing can make the world a better place. And that's why we're so, drawn to, focus on this industry. We have known for a long time that the traditional motions of B2B marketing are not helping, companies succeed at the highest level. And that only, kind of considering brand and marketing and sales and product and customer success, all within the context of a customer experience, and trying to drive continuity in that customer experience and create defining moments in each of those subdomains. We know that is the path forward to success. And so, I feel that the rebrand is a full embrace of customer experience. And frankly, it puts us at risk a little bit because it's poorly understood. But I feel like we have the responsibility to do that, because when you hang out a flag that says we're a B2B marketing agency, then people want to come and buy B2B marketing stuff. We do that stuff. It's blocking and tackling. Blocking and tackling is super important. But what's often missed is the opportunity to change the destiny for a company by elevating, some of these things that are viewed as blocking and tackling to an opportunity to create a defining moment that has a significant impact on, the customer experience for that company. So I am really excited. And I think you did and your team did a great job on the rebrand. And I look forward to having a lot more customer experience conversations, and not as many. Like what's the current click-through rate on that email list. Blocking and tackling is super important, but it's not the whole ball of wax.
Agree. Brett, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again next week.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Take care.